All right, so chapter 24. A little bit still on industrialization, but mostly focusing on imperialism. So, what do we mean by imperialism? What, Stephen? All right, making colonies. So if we look at the map, before and after, 1763, 1830. 1763, where are most Europeans still focused? Latin America, but we're seeing the development of some colonies over here. By 1830, what do we see? What's happened over here? All the Europeans have gone away.
Except for Canada.
And or they have become the locals. Because by 1830, what's happened over here? American Revolution. So the British are gone. The United States is now here. All through here, you're having revolutions that are kicking out who? The Spanish and the Portuguese, and claiming their independence. So what do we see? We see the Europeans head over here and begin to do the same thing that they used to do over here. So let me give you a couple case studies. We saw some of this already in our reading quiz, so this should go fairly quickly. The Dutch. What country do the Dutch come from? It's actually the Netherlands. Holland is part of the Netherlands. Now, it's a normal mistake because that's how most people see Netherlands and Holland as being interchangeable. It's not technically correct, but you know what? We'll be okay with it. So the Dutch people are from the Netherlands. We can say Holland, it's fine. Are the Netherlands a big country? No. So they don't necessarily have the manpower and the firepower to go to someplace like India and take it over. So they're going to Java, which is down here in Southeast Asia. Here's the island of Java. Whoa. This is going to be Vietnam. So just to give you a frame of reference, this is a blown up picture of the island of Java. Same textbook or same picture that's in your textbook. And one of the things that you're going to find is that when the Dutch go to Java at first, it's a very similar experience to what happens along the coast of Africa when the Europeans first show up. Which means what? You're cut off for the day. All right, Nick's out of the game. Somebody else has to step up. What were the Europeans like when they first went to Africa? Eileen? Say it again. Good. So they had this short burst of violence where they were kidnapping and raiding and things like that, and then they found out that didn't work because the African kingdoms were pretty strong, and so they made a system of alliances. The Dutch are going to learn the same lesson very quickly when they go to Java. Now, Java has lots of spices, much like India. And so that's why the Dutch are so interested. Here you see a warehouse of all of these platters full of spices. I mean, this is tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product right here. And that's what the Dutch want to get their hands on. So when they go to Java, they go there as vassals. They go there with humility. They go and they kneel down and they say, Your Majesty, whatever his name was, we would humbly beg to be your loyal servant. We will work for you. And they're being totally sincere. This is not like some sort of hee-hee, my manipulative plan has begun. Like, this is sincere. We just want to get some stuff. And they help out the Sultan of Java in two different wars. First one is in 1619, the second one is in 1670. And in both cases, like we talked about in the reading quiz, the people in Java are rising up against the Sultan. The Sultan turns to the Dutch for help because the Dutch have guns. And so the Dutch train the locals in the use of their machine guns. Not really machine guns yet, but, you know, rifles. And the Sultan is able to maintain power, and as a gesture of thanks, he gives them this small section of the island, which contains an important trade city called Batavia, right on the coast. And the Dutch are now allowed to control that portion of the island of Java. So what do they do with that land? Right, they grow spices, and they harvest them. Right. And they have a port where they can easily ship things in and out. And this cements that friendship with the government. So now, next time there's this big violent uprising, the Dutch are going to once again help out and be given a little bit more territory. Now, eventually what will happen is the Dutch realize they are in a position of strength. And now they can almost blackmail. Oh, look, another rebellion. You're in trouble, Your Majesty. I bet you'd like some help right now. Yes, yes, I would. Please, please help me, help me. The people are rioting in the streets. What do I do? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to let me take my firearms, train your people. They're going to go fight rather than my people, because we're not willing to die for you. And then when this is all said and done, assuming you maintain your power, you are going to give us something as a token of thanks. This doesn't start out deceptive and manipulative, but eventually the Dutch realize how much power and influence they have. And so what you see is that by 1830, they control the whole island. It has become theirs. They never had to fight for it. All they had to do was help the people fight each other. It's kind of a brilliant strategy. And it happens kind of by accident. Again, nobody showed up in the early 1600s and was like, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do. 200-year-long game plan. You ready? First, we're going to appear totally subservient. Then we're going to wait on the off chance that the people get mad enough at the ruler, like always happens throughout history, that they rebel. And then we will be in the exact right position to help. Like, no. They go there trying to make money during their lifetime, and they happen into a good series of circumstances. This is a 200-year-long process. There was no one person that was like, all right, 200 years, I'm going to be dead, you're going to be dead, your kids are going to be dead, but our great-grandkids are going to rule this place. That ain't happening. All right, so we good with case study number 1. Dutch take control of Java. Slowly, over time. And what's their biggest edge? Firearms. Yes, Nick?
Is the date for that thing underneath it 1750 correct?
Yes. So as you look at your dates here, it's the slow acquisition of territory. At some point, the natives, the people in Java, do try to oust the Dutch, but by that point, the Dutch are so well entrenched that that rebellion fails.
But that says 1750.
Right. So after 1750, the Dutch still don't have total control of the island territorially, but they are the, I don't know, I guess you'd say ad hoc rulers at that point. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, case study number 2. Same plan, different people, different location. So instead of the Dutch in Java, this is the British in India. Same plan. The British show up with no interest in conquest, no interest in colonization. British East India Trade Company has one goal and one goal only, and that goal is make money. Make money, make money. And so they are sending British men to India with that goal in mind. Go and make money through trade. And these British men come to be affectionately known, except not at all affectionately, come to be nicknamed Nabobs. They are wildly selfish and corrupt and are looking out only for themselves. And they are taking outrageous advantage of their position in the trade company to get whatever money they can, make themselves wealthy, and then get out and go back home and live like rich people. They are not interested in taking over India at first. Yes? Nabobs are the British officials in the trade company. Yeah, they're businessmen. Now, yes, Caroline?
Was the government not that involved, or were these independent trade companies then?
Right. Well, the British company or the British government creates the East India Trade Company and then says, all right, board of directors of the East India Trade Company, your job is to go to India and make money, send goods back so that England will become wealthier. It's like American companies that go overseas. Their job is to make money, and by them making money, the country makes money. Does that make sense? Okay. What happens is the East India Trade Company, over time, becomes so rich and so powerful that they kind of stop listening to the British government. They're like, you're really far away. We're in India. You're in England. Messages take a long time to get to us. Oops, the ship sank. I'm sorry. I didn't know you didn't want me to start a war. Hee hee. I guess I'm just going to have to keep all this land that I got. That's what will eventually happen. But again, early on, no interest in conquest, no interest in colonization, simply an interest in making money. Now, just like the Dutch in Java, when there are conflicts, you're going to let the locals do the fighting. So in India, we call these mercenaries, these locals that the British hire, we call them sepoys. So these would be Indian people that the East India Company hires and pays to fight for them. Now, why is this a good thing for the East India Company? Alia? Right, you don't lose British men. Why is this a good deal for Indians? Because they get paid. Think back to the caste system. If you were in one of the bottom two tiers of the caste system, would you happily take good clothing, 3 meals a day, a roof over your head, a gun, and money to go fight for these people? Absolutely. I mean, you're like security guard. That's a butch macho position. That's awesome. They're paying you to do it, even better, and they're paying you to shoot a gun. Who doesn't take that job? And again, like you said, from the British standpoint, this is a no-brainer. We're paying other people to fight and die for us. This is great. Now, the difference in India is that there's 2 countries fighting for it. The Dutch had a monopoly in Java. Nobody else was competing for Java. In India, India is so big and has always been so desirable, it wasn't just the British that wanted it. The French also wanted to colonize India. And so what you're going to see here is that you have a fight between the British and the French. Guess who does a lot of the fighting? The sepoys. Does this seem like an even more brilliant strategy now from the European perspective? Yeah. Now, spoiler, the British win. The French are largely kicked out of India, and if you see the map, which again is taken from your textbook, so you can look at it later, this is a long, slow, 100-year process of eventual colonization. Same plan. Intercede in local conflicts, and then once you've found this recipe of local mercenaries, local alliances, just get the ball rolling. And eventually, you'll own or influence the entire subcontinent of India. Doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen in one person's lifetime. But over 100 years, the British are able to do the same thing in India that the Dutch do in Java. Go from having zero interest in colonization to total control of this colony. Now, fun side note, because we never talk about United States history. Do you know part of the reason why we won the American Revolution?
The British had to tie down troops on our front against the French.
Right. Because the British are paying more attention to what's happening in India. Guess which colony was more important to them? India. Now that sends most Americans into fits of, but we're awesome. But
We are.
England called India the crown jewel of the British Empire. This was their golden goose. This was the most valuable piece of real estate they had. The American colonies were important. Their Caribbean colonies were more important. So on the ranking sheet of British possessions, we're a distant third, and look at the one that they lose. The one they could most afford to give up. They keep their sugar plantations, the islands in the Caribbean, and they keep India. Does that kind of turn your U.S. history on its head a little bit? Does that take it from this grand American victory of kicking out the Redcoats to, oh man, we beat like their JV team?
Much more impressive than these more rich as well.
Right. But this kind of turns the revolution from that, great underdog story, come from behind, David and Goliath win, to, oh, we just roughed up the freshman team. Well, every once in a while I downgrade it even further, depending on how I'm feeling. Anyway, the other advantage that the British have in India is they're able not only to divide based on local governments, because India at this time, with the decline of the Mughal Empire, is once again going to become regionally governed, but they are also able to exploit the religious differences. Like that question on the reading quiz about tropical dependencies, exploiting cultural and religious and ethnic breaks. Here, you can exert influence on Hindus over Muslims, or Muslims over Hindus, or things like that, and help to further weaken local governments so that you can take advantage and take control. Yes, Nick?
Back to the thing with the third whatever, that wouldn't we have been fighting better troops because in India they would have been weakening the locals?
To an extent, but as this progresses, you are going to see more direct British involvement because they are fighting against the French and not just the locals. Okay, we're going to call that good for today. Next class, just to give you a quick preview in case you want to jump ahead. There's a lot of graphics on this, but we're specifically going to take a look at kind of a before and after, so change over time, essentially. What Europeans are like when they first get to these Eastern Hemisphere colonies, and then slowly over time, what happens. And we're going to have a lot of great visuals for this as well. We're going to talk about the reasons why the Europeans are successful. We're going to look at some of the propaganda that promotes some of these changes. And we're going to get a before and after glimpse of just how quickly Europeans gain control. See you all next class.